So what I'm going to be talking about today is bindings. Now this is a store-bought bias binding that is a double fold. These are great. You can get them in many colors. I often find that I can't quite get the exact color I want, and that even when you wash them, they tend to be pretty stiff for some things. They're really great for crafts, for blankets, but for clothes and some other crafts, they tend to stay a bit stiffer than a handmade binding like this. Now you can do these in any size that you need, which is really great. They do make little tools, which I'll show you in a bit, and you can make them, as you can see, in small. Now a couple things to remember for making binding that you need to know is that you do need to, for a woven fabric, you need to cut it on the bias. It's very important. If you do not cut your strips on the bias, you won't have the stretch to go around curves, and it will stay very stiff and it will pucker. You really have to cut it on that bias. So a couple things that you'll need today to do that are a ruler. I like to use a clear ruler. This one is a 3-inch wide. This one is a 2-inch. It just really depends on how wide you want to do them. I'm going to be doing a 2-inch wide strip. Now, the way that you do this is you do want to have your fabric. This is my salvage right here. So you really do need to find where that bias is. It's obviously not straight. You're not going to just cut a straight. If you just cut a strip, what you end up with is a strip of fabric, not a bias strip. A bias strip has to be cut on that diagonal. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. I've already cut quite a few, so I'm just going to show you how. And one of the best things about the rulers is that you can just go ahead and place it at that diagonal, and it will kind of help you if you go from your corner at that complete diagonal as shown here, that will give you that bias cut. So we're just going to do a small one to show you. And I like to, for this on a cotton fabric, I like to just use a mechanical pencil or a regular pencil because it gives you a very clear line of where you're cutting. It's going to be covered. It doesn't really matter if you see a little bit of your pencil mark, because when you fold your bias strip, it will be covered. So you need to start with that initial line and then decide how wide you want to do it. I'm doing 2-inch wide bias strips. Now that doesn't mean that at the end it's going to be 2 inches wide. That means that you're starting out with a 2-inch wide strip and then you're going to fold it in quarters basically. So this is your lines you're going to cut across on here and here, which will give you this strip. You'll end up with strips like so. Now, this, as you can see, it has that stretch and that give. It will have that diagonal corner there, which is important for putting them together. I've sewn a couple on here, so let me just show you how you want to pin it. To be able to get it to open up like this, you don't want to pin it in the, you don't want small side to large side of your, if you pin it this way, small side to large side, what you'll end up with is exactly the same, and you'll get a nice little V here, but that won't give you a straight bias strip. It will give you a bit of a curve. So what you do want to do is you will take an offset like so. Now the particular width you choose to do on this is really a personal preference. I am doing a 1/4 inch seam just because I don't feel I need a very large seam within there. If you feel more comfortable working with that 5/8, that's completely fine. As you can see, I've just stitched here, and that is a 1/4 inch. And we will open this up, and it will be flat. You'll iron it, press it, and now you'll have that bias strip. So the next step after you stitch it is to actually iron it and press it into that folded section of how you want it. There are different ways you can do this. You can use it just like this. Say you want to put it on a skirt, then what you'll do is you will take, we're going to say this is our skirt fabric, this is our bias strip, right side, stitch it, flip it, and encase it again. Now, I will be showing you how to do it for other projects, just like this one here, so that you'll end up with something like this store-bought bias where it is folded and then folded again to give you that look, which would be this way right here. And so for that, let's go to the ironing board. So as I told you, there are tools like this, which is great. However, this particular tool that I have makes a very small bias, so you want to only do a 1-inch strip, and it's going to make a very narrow, which is completely fine. Let me open this up so you can see how to do that, and then I'll show you how to fold it when press it without having that tool, because after all, sometimes you just don't have those little tools. They can tend to be expensive after a while if you buy every little tool that's out there. And sometimes you just don't really need them. So we're just going to press this open. So now we're back to our 1-inch strip. Now, admittedly, you're not going to just work probably with a small strip like this. You are going to do a very long, probably a yard or so. And so you will be spending quite a bit of time at your iron. But for this particular tool, you will place your strip inside it and guide it through. Now, if your fabric gets stuck, that's where that pencil also comes in handy. You can just stick it in there and kind of pull it a bit. So you want to have that come out, like so, and hold it, that iron ready, and you just slide it out as you press it, pressing that into place. I do prefer steam for pressing, especially with cottons. It makes it a lot easier, it makes it go a lot quicker. So now we've pressed it in this fashion, and you can use it just like this, stitch it and then fold it over as you need. However, I do like to have it already prepared, and for that I like to put my small edges even. Get that iron again and press it, just folding it over as you're bringing that iron to it. And press that down, and now you have this very nice little bias strip. Now, as I mentioned, this 2-inch strip doesn't quite fit. This one here that I'm showing you is 1.5 inches, and it doesn't fit in the tool I have either. It does cause puckering. So this is the same fashion as you would do it for any bias, no matter what size, if you don't have the tool. So I'm just going to press this open. You can see it. We don't need the tool. We'll move it aside. So you have your strip. It's all ready to go. And you want to make it pre-pressed and ready. So you're just going to fold so that they meet in the center. And it's basically you're folding it in quarter and quarter to make it into half. Each side comes in a quarter of the way, no matter how wide it is. Not 1/4 of an inch, but 1/4 of the distance. So then you just hold that and press it, and you'll fold it and pinch it as you go. Fold and pinch. Pressing that nicely. And again, you can stitch it this way. You can open it, stitch it here, and then you'll have that nice crisp line, and then you can bring that down if you don't want that top stitch to show and slip stitch it on the back. Or if you're going to stitch through all thicknesses and the fabric that it's in between, I like to again go ahead and fold it in half one more time. making sure that these edges of your folds are even. That way you have a very even, consistent width of your bias strip. And there you go. You have a very nice bias strip that you can put onto anything. So, hope that helps you out a bit. And now, something to keep in mind is that this is how to do a woven bias strip. If you want to do a knit bias strip that's slightly different, you just need to cut your strips, fold in half and stitch, because you don't need to worry about encasing those raw edges of a knit. However, for a woven you do, as well as you do need to make sure that you cut it on that bias. The bias is very important, otherwise you won't have that stretch. You see it still has a stretch. If it was cut on grain, it would not move. You would just have a nice little piece here, and that'd be great if you just wanted to have it straight. If you want to use it for any decorating where you have a curve, that's not going to work. This bias strip here, let me show you. With it being cut on the bias, you can place it, press it, stretch it around those corners, and you're ready to stitch it. Makes a nice little covering for any of those holiday placemats or anything else that you might be doing. As well as for skirts, hems, seam bindings, the possibilities for bias tape is really endless. Enjoy your sewing.